So today we're talking about, or we started talking about Next React.js last week. So we'll just continue that and finish up and see how we can move on to Next.js as a framework. So let me share my screen so you can see. All right. So last week was week 10. So I've copied over what we did last week here. This is week 11. So let me just run this. So we talked about React, we talked about DOM, we did, we imported the React DOM as a CDN in line 8. We imported, React itself in line 8. Then we imported React DOM in line 9 as a CDN. And then we imported Babel as well as a CDN. So, but what we're going to be doing today, after demoing this, let me turn off this. So, after demoing this, we're now going to see how to install Next.js or React and Next.js the recommended way, which is using Node Package Manager to install the framework. So, but for today, so we're still going to look at this. So last week we created an ID in the body of our HTML, and inside JavaScript. Oh, so I made a change here. So last week we added, what we had there was text/JSX, right? You can see there was no syntax highlighting, there was no color, everything was just dull. So today I changed this to Babel. So we're telling the script, the rendering engine, that this is a Babel script, Babel, Babel. So you can see the highlighting is back. So yeah, if you are following along, you should also change yours to Babel. Remember, Babel is here. Babel is it's a utility plugin or tool that helps you to transcribe or interpret your JSX or the HTML you are having inside your JavaScript. It's actually called JSX. That's JSX. So you can see the way we are writing JavaScript here. Writing HTML here, div and all that within the script tag. Look at within the script tag, meaning we're inside JavaScript world here, from line 18 to line 41, let's say 19 to 41. So we're inside JavaScript world, but then ideally you shouldn't write HTML there. JavaScript is going to complain that something is wrong. In fact, if I do this, if I take this off, JavaScript is going to complain that something is wrong, right? So, but the Babel plugin helps us to transcribe or recompile or convert your HTML into JavaScript. So it's a powerful feature in React. So inside React, inside your JavaScript, you can just keep on writing your HTML as if it is HTML. But behind the scene, Babel is helping you to reconvert all that to what React understands or what JavaScript understands. So now let's run this. Let's see what we had last week or where we stopped. So I'm going to run this, open with live server, so we can see. All right, so this was where we stopped last week. So if you remember, we talked about props, that there is a property or a variable called props that comes with a React component, right? So all the properties you add to your component, remember this function is called, this is a React component. Number one, you begin a React component with capital letter. So this helps you this helps React to sort of differentiate that component from normal HTML tags. See the way it is called here? This is how you call a React component, as if it's an HTML tag, normal HTML tag with angle brackets, then it's open and you close the bracket here, then the name of the function. So it's called a React component, right? So header is called here, and then you are passing attributes as if it's normal HTML attributes, right? Passing title as an attribute, passing age as an attribute, but in React term, they are called props or properties. In HTML, assuming it is eight. Okay, here take line 14 for example. These are called attributes, or this is an attribute of this div tag, right? But in the world of React, they are not called attributes; they are actually properties. So we are adding properties to sort of give more information to this particular uh, component. So we're telling this component that there's a property called title, there's a property called age. So, and how do you call or refer to those properties where the function is declared? You remember, this is where we create the function. We are declaring the function here. This is where we are calling or using the function. So we are passing these properties or and giving them values at the point of use, right? But at the point of declaration, how do you now make use of those properties? So there's a props variable that React exposes or gives to you that helps you to fetch all those properties from that particular component. So again, we talked about JavaScript destructuring. Once you grab that particular props variable, you can destructure all the contents as separate variables using the structuring method. This is a JavaScript feature. So meaning that even if you have 100 properties here, we have one, we have two properties here. If you have 100 or 1000, they will all be destructured into their individual variables this way. So just create use curly braces, then declare those individual properties here, and then assign or set them equal to the props variable that React exposes. So this now means that title is now a variable of type const or is a constant variable. Age is a constant variable, and all other properties you may have, or like I said, you can declare. There's also the spread operator in JavaScript. So assuming I don't want to start typing 100 variables at once on that line 22, you can spread the rest out using three dot notations and say, let's say rest, whatever you want to give to it. So this dot 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 rest will now pick all, assuming we have 100 variables like I said. So this is 1, 2, and then all the 98 variables will be stored in this rest variable, right? Or all the remaining 98 properties rather will be stored in this rest variable. So these are just basic features of JavaScript. It's not unique to React. It's not unique to any. It is from JavaScript. So let's take note of that. But in our case, we have just two properties, title and age. So we are destructuring it this way so that we can now start using them within the body of the function. So how are we using them here? We're saying that as a React component, we want to return this particular user interface. So whatever you return is what will be displayed on the UI for you. If you return a button will be displayed here, right? Let's see. So if you return, let me put a div tag here, just to have. You must have, take note, in React, whatever you are returning, you must have a single component housing all other components. So most times you use your div or fragments, right? So I can rewrite this, bring this down so it's clear. This is what I did here. So look at that. Look at line 30, 31, 32. So you must have a particular container to house all other containers. So I wanted to add another one here, a button component. Let's close this. and then let's give it click me or something, whatever title you want to give to it. So you can see it is appearing here as a button. So JSX or the Babel has converted this to a normal HTML button that you are seeing in the UI here. Here it is JSX, H1 here, that all JSX, not HTML, but JSX Babel rather is converting this JSX as normal HTML that is rendered on the browser. So I was trying to say something here. So if you have multiple components to display, the return keyword here must have a single component to house all other components. See, that's how React works. So you have a particular component, a single component to house other components. Let's test this. I hope this has not changed. So let's say I'm putting another div here, right? So let's see. Aha, something is already, React is telling me. Let's see our the browser, the dev tool. So there's an error somewhere. So let's check console. It's telling us where is it? It says syntax error. Inline Babel script adjacent JS element must be wrapped. See, must be wrapped in an enclosing tag. So React is seeing one component from line 30 to 33, and then let's say another component here. Component. So line 30 to 33 is component 1, and then line 34 is component 2. So React is telling us that no. You must house all these components with one. You must wrap all of them with a particular component. So to solve this problem, just rewrap it again. You can do, let me see, option W. Okay, it's working. So div. So you can see how I've rewrapped this and this, so that React is returning just a single component to the browser, right? I can close this now, so you can see. So React only returns a single component to the browser. Take note, every React component should return a single component to the browser, but of course that single component cannot have children, so take note of that. So we are returning this, and now where are we using it? This is the remember this is the header component. We are using it in our home component. The home component is what is being rendered actually by React. You can see root.render. I'm only rendering the home component, but inside the home component I'm having what? The header component being called as well. So where we now pass our parameters. So that's how React works, passing parameters with props, or fetching or referencing parameters or properties using the props keyword, props property. So now with this done, let's talk about states, right? Let's talk about state and React hooks. So React has a set of functions called hooks, React hooks. Let's quickly check something. It's always good to consult documentation. I'm a big fan of that. So React hooks. What are React hooks? Built-in React hooks. So hooks let you use different React features from your components. You can either use the built-in hooks or combine them to build your own. This playlist, so look at there are state hooks. There are different types of hook called use state, use reducer. There are context hooks. There are ref hooks. There are effect hooks called, you can use using the use effect. There are performance hooks and so on and so forth. So hooks allow you to add additional logic such as state to your components. So what are now states? What are states? Or what is state in React? You can think of state as any information in your user interface that changes over time. So for example, like this button now, if I click on this button, the state could change, it may not change. But if, let's say, the text changes from click me to you have clicked me, then the state of that button has changed. That means an action has taken place, an event has been fired. So the state has changed. So if the text changes from click me to you have clicked me or I've been clicked, or maybe you have the way you have social media buttons or icons that registers the number of likes that a post has. Once you like a post on Facebook, what happens? That like button increases by one, the value increases by one. Or if you share a post, it tells you the number of times a post was shared, right? If you give a comment, it tells you the number of comments within that post. So all those effects or actions being performed, you are changing the state, of that particular element. So in React exposes hooks for managing your states inside a React application. So like I said, a state gives you information in your user interface, and it helps to change the current state. I'm using the word state again, like the current property or the value. Yeah, so you can actually use the word value because states have variables or values. So if the value of an object changes to something else, then that state or the state of that object has changed. But take note, in React, states are immutable, or they should be immutable, meaning that you should not modify the state of an element or a component or a property. What you should do instead is to replace or make a copy of that state and then replace. So you don't change the original value of a state. And the reason is because of consistency. React wants to make sure that I can keep track of the different states or previous states of a particular component. Because if you keep altering and modifying the state, if there's a way to do that, then React will not be able to keep track of what has happened in the past. So React prefers to keep previous states and then have a duplicate or a multiple of those states as future states. So that's just a summary about states. And you use states by, as we just saw now, using the use state hook. So how do we make use of this? Now let's do something. Let's add a bit of functionality to our code. Let's add let me see, let's take away this. So today mainly we're talking about, of course, we want to start with state or state management and then move on to how to use Next.js properly. Here we're still doing pure React here. So let's add, okay, we've added a button to this point. Let me bring it here. Let's try to move it down to somewhere, let's say here. Let's bring this button here. Right, let's add it here. So let's name this button like, right? Let's demonstrate that social media feature that we just talked about. And again, this tutorial is online, is the official tutorial on nextjs.org. So we're just going to follow what's been done. Now, Brian to meeting group. Yeah, thanks. So now, we're having a button named like, right? So what we want to do is to add events to this particular button, right? So remember what we did when we're talking about JavaScript. You can add events, or every HTML tag has its own default event, right? For example, a button can be clicked, a form can be submitted, a drop-down button can be changed. You can change the value of it. A checkbox can be changed. a radio button can be changed or can be clicked. Different properties, different events can be or different objects or tags have their individual events that can apply to it. So in this case now we can add a or an on-click event to this. And how do you do that? Just like in HTML, you do on click, right? On click. You use camel case. Take note. So React events are declared using camel case. Remember camel case? So the first letter, the first word in this variable name, we're having two words here. There is on and there is click. So the first word is in lowercase, then all other words you capitalize the first letter. So that's camel case. So on click, so we want to fire an event when this button is clicked, but we want the button to be we want to perform an action. So what you do is that you set, let me just put this here for now. So you set, now we're having errors in our script, but we're still going to resolve that. So you create a function here that is executed when the on-click event takes place. So when the click event takes place, this function, whatever the name of this function is here, is executed, right? So, and how do we do that? We can create the function directly here. That's one way. Or we create the function. In fact, let's try that here. So let's do function and then it creates, let's say console. Let's do something. Let's just log out console.log button clicked, right? Let's say button clicked. Now what we have done here is inline. We are creating the function inline. Remember inline in JavaScript, we are doing it directly on this same line where we've declared our button component. So now we're saying function. So when this button is clicked, I want to console log button click. That's just what we're doing here. So let's inspect. Let's view the console. So let me delete this and rerun and re-click the button. Let me reduce this so we can see. So if I click on this light button, did you see this text here? Can you see this text? Button click. That means an event has been performed, right? So a click event has taken place. So the click event can be as simple as just displaying a text here. It can be as complex as uploading your profile picture. It can be as complex as submitting a shopping cart on Amazon.com. It can be as complex as running or downloading something online, right? So that's programming for you. So which means that function that you want the button to have or to perform goes into this function, this function. You can see. So programming tries to follow. You can see. So the function you want to perform when you click the button is housed by this particular function we've declared here. So literally the meaning of function is do something, function something, do something, perform an action, right? That's what we're trying to do. But not to clutter your code, we can actually move this function out of here. We can move it out of here. Still within, remember we're still inside we're still inside our component here, so we can move it outside here. But of course you can't declare a function at this point. When the function was still inside here, it is called an anonymous function. there was no name given to it, right? We just declared function. So we are passing that function directly, anonymously. There is no name assigned to it. But in this case, if you are declaring the function on its own, when the function is standing alone, as we are having it in line 38 to line 40, JavaScript is telling us something is wrong. You cannot have an anonymous function standing alone. Every object, every variable you declare in programming should have a name, right? So in JavaScript, you can give it a name as well. So there are different ways. So I can actually say, let's give it a name. Let's say click, or let's call it handle. But we're just trying to follow, what is it? Click, handle click. So you can see in line 38, this is how you declare a function. So function and then the name. So JavaScript, it now understands that, oh, this whole structure here, there is a name given to it and it's a function. So anytime I need to perform a function to click a button, I can use this name to do that, right? So, but we're still having a bug here. You can see there is an underline, a red underline here, telling us that there's an error in our script, which is what we can also see on our console. It's telling us, can see the way it's even letting us know where the error is coming from. It's telling us attribute must only be assigned a non-empty expression. So this place has an empty expression. So let's see how to now call that function. It's very simple. Just take this name and put it here. All right. So you can see our code is running fine now. So what we have done now is we have now that. So let me explain something at this point. So we said when you create a function, you can execute a function by calling the function name with parentheses. Now you might be asking, why are we not doing handle click parentheses at this point? Why are we not doing this? So now this is the explanation. In React, you pass functions as reference to your events, right? Remember in JavaScript, this curly brace for calling a function executes that function immediately. When you call a function with the curly brace, I'm saying I want to execute this function. But if you omit the curly brace in JavaScript, I'm saying I'm passing the whole definition of the function to this spot. So don't execute it. Bring everything from here as it is declared here, replace, just like the way we started it, the way we made it anonymous just few minutes ago. So we are just saying reference whatever handle click is, bring it down, put it here, but do not execute it yet. So that's how React works, or JavaScript generally. So now when I need to execute this function only when I click on the button. So there is delayed execution. There's immediate execution. Immediately. Now look at, let me delete what is on my right hand side. Let me take away this console log here. Now look at, compare this. See our output here. Nothing. Ignore these warnings, yellow warning outputs. They are just normal warnings. But we can see we don't have our own output here. Remember, we're doing button clicked. We are console logging button clicked, but it's not coming, it's not being displayed. It is because at this point the button has not been clicked. So, but now look, let's observe the output. If I put my brackets or my parentheses, can you see what is on the right hand side? Button clicked. So it means that immediately you put your parentheses, JavaScript executes this function, not even waiting. It will not even wait for you to click that button, right? So JavaScript will immediately execute that. So in React and JavaScript generally, if you want an action to be performed at the click of a button, or when an event is fired, you don't call that function, you reference that function. So that's just the summary of what I'm trying to say. You reference it, you don't call. So there's something called pass by reference. So you are passing the function here as a reference, but you are not executing it immediately. You want to delay the execution until when the button or when that action is performed. So take note of that. So when the action is now performed, let's see what will now happen. If I do click, you can see button click telling me the number. Look at this bubble, this badge here, the number of times I've clicked on it. That's 4, 5. Can you see 6, 7, 8, 9? So as I'm clicking on it, so the event is registering the number of times that action has been performed. So take note of that. It's a feature that we need to understand as developers, or as React developers. So number one, we added a button. Number two, we added an event. Number three, what did we do? We handled the events, see, by using a function. Then number four, okay, so we'll handle the click event. So number 5, let's now see. Remember, we want to bring this counts, this number of clicks, to the user interface. Remember, we talked about states and hooks. So as I'm clicking on this button and the state is changing, I want my user or whoever is using my app to see those changes. Because what's the point of clicking a button or the point of liking a post when it is not being refreshed or when the state is not changing? So you want your application to be user friendly and all that. So we want to use what is called states now, or hooks, to bring all this to life in React. So the first thing we need to do is to use the use state hook. And how do you do that? Remember, we have imported our React in line 8 as a CDN. So we have access to all the React functions, all the React properties and everything. So this line 8 gives us access to all the hooks that React exposes or provides for us. So what we need to do now is come to our home page, our function, preferably at the top. Conventionally, they say you declare your hooks at the top of the function. So we're just going to follow the convention. So, and how do you do that? You add React dot what? Use state. Remember, we said use state is the hook, is the name of the hook for managing states in React. So there is a function called use state. So it's a hook. It's called a hook in React. So, but of course, we cannot use it alone. It will not work. See, we're already having errors. It's a function of React. Is a constant. Is a static function of React. So we must precede it by saying React.useHook. By the time we start, using by the time we start using Next.js, start building using proper framework, you can actually import the use state directly, so that you don't have to precede the expression with React, right? But in this case, React has been imported for us, so we must use it to get or to set our state. So now, this use state, it returns an array. Remember, a function can return a value. Look at this function here. This header function is returning a value. This particular component, that's the meaning. So when this function header executes, or this component in the world of React now, even though it's a simple JavaScript function, but in React it's called a component. So when this component runs, it returns this. So every function should return a value. If it doesn't have a value, it's returning a void value, right? You can have void functions or void methods. That means that method or function doesn't return a value. Just like what we did, where is that? Where is in this place. We're not really returning, we're not using the return keyword. We're just printing, right? So this function is a void function. It's not returning. Don't be confused. You might be saying, oh, but of course, it's printing click. It's printing button clicked. Is that not a return value? No, that's not a return value. That is just a log. That's a print statement. We're just printing. The function itself is not returning something to or at the point where it is being called, right? So anytime a function returns a value in JavaScript, you use the return keyword. So now this use state, the way it has been written by the developers of React is that it returns an array. So that means I can assign that array into a variable, right? And the step is that you destructure those returned values into an array variable. So let me explain this. So I can assign the result, whatever is coming from this use state, assign it to a variable. Remember, I can define a variable as using const or let, and then you give it a name. But in this case, this use state returns two variables or two things, right? The first one, it returns, the first thing it returns is a value of that state. For example, when you click a button and the state changes from 1 to 2, that value 2 is a state. So it returns that value. Then the second thing it returns is the action that changes that state. So the use state also gives you a process for you to be able to, increase the value of that button. Remember, we're doing likes. So you want to do likes 0, likes 1, likes 2, or you want to print a page, or you want to submit a shopping cart online and things like that. So use state returns two things. Number one, the state variable, and then a function that helps you to set the state of that variable into an array. And we'll use array destructuring. Remember, this is going to be familiar to you now. So the first thing is the variable name. You can give it any variable name, any name at all. So, but in this case, since we are dealing with likes, remember the button we are clicking on is like, right? So you just give it the logical name. We can say likes, right? Let's name this one also likes. Let's give it an appropriate name. So now that's the first variable, or this is the value or the state variable. Then the next one is a way for you to be able to change. I'm using the word change loosely here because we said we shouldn't really change the value, but the change I'm talking about is if there's a way to set a new state for that variable. That's the meaning of the change I'm using. So take note, we are not really modifying the value. We are just changing the state of that value, meaning that we are copying or replacing the original state. So take note. So the first thing is the variable, and then another variable, or what is wrong with my keyboard? This is likes. So there are two. So the first one is the state variable, and then a setter function. They're called setter functions. So conventionally, I'm using the word set before the name here. It can be, you can put mango here, right? You can put cat here, right? So whatever name, React will not complain. Just make sure when you need that function, you must use the word cat. But of course, by convention, every framework or programming language has a convention. So the convention they use for React setter function is to use the word set and then the name of the variable likes. The variable is called likes, but this one is, you can see it's actually, it has a meaning. Set likes, that means I want to set a new value for likes, or I want to change the original value of likes. So it has a logical meaning using, naming it this way, right? So let me recap again. Number one, use state returns two values. You destructure, and I was trying to explain this. You can see what is it? Normal brackets, angle. Is this angle brackets? What is this called again? So you know this normal, yeah, square brackets. Thank you. So square brackets are used for arrays, right, in JavaScript. So it's like we're saying this is an array of variables. So we've destructured those two things coming from use state. We are setting them to this particular variable likes and that variable set likes. But this variable is actually a function. So when you are calling this variable, you call it as a function. You execute. We say set likes and put your parentheses. Take note of that. So when you are calling the set likes, is actually a function. So you call set likes and then with your parentheses to now do or modify whatever modify the content of or the state of likes at this point. So take note of that. So we've done that. Now we've introduced a state using use state to our code. So how do we now execute? Remember, when we click on this button, the event happens at the clicking of this button. So it is logical for us to now change the state. In fact, let's do something. Let's echo out the value, the default value of state here. Let's put parentheses here. Let's call likes. You are wondering, how are we calling likes? Remember, likes is now a variable. It has been destructured into this variable here. So which means anywhere within this function, remember variable scope. So anywhere within this function from line 37 to line 48, I have access to likes. I have access to set likes. Are you getting it? So these variables are available to me within this home function. Take note. So anywhere within this home function, I can make reference, I can call these likes. But then use state also has a default value. So in this case, since we want to increment numbers, so you can set the initial value of likes as, let's say, 0. So can you notice what is on the UI? We're having likes 0. So immediately the initial value is assigned to likes, and because likes is now a variable within this function, I can make use of it here. The curly braces here from last week. Here, this line 46, we're inside JSX world, but I want to bring in a JavaScript variable. Then you must now enter JavaScript world using the curly braces. So don't be confused. The curly braces in that line 46 is to be able to make reference or use these likes, which is a JavaScript variable, inside JSX or within JSX. Because if I just do likes, JavaScript is going to complain. In fact, okay, no, it's going to see it as just text. So look at likes bracket, likes close bracket. So it's going to see it as just text because this is converted to HTML, remember? So whatever you have here will be converted to just HTML text on the browser. But we want to bring it in as a variable, so we put your curly braces to wrap that particular variable. So by default, once the page runs, likes is set to 0. This is the initial value. So whatever value you put here as the initial value will be set to likes. You can use string. I can say welcome, depending on the use case. Welcome will come there. Look at. So whatever value you have here is the initial state of this particular component. Remember this button. So the initial state of this button now, we're saying it is welcome, right? But logically, this is not what we want to do. We want to increment. So we need numbers. So what I'm trying to say is that we can use a Boolean operation. You can say true, assuming the use case is for true. You can use true. You can use a Boolean expression. You can use numbers. You can use strings. You can use anything here as the initial value. But in this case, we need numbers. So an initial number should be 0 based on what we want to do. All right. So now, how do we now change the state of this likes variable? That's where you use the set likes. So you use the set likes keyword to now change the state. So you call your state updater function. Remember, it's called the setter function. Is to update the state of the function. You call that function within the function that is handling the click event. Because if you call it anywhere else, the click event will not take place because the click event is referencing this function. So ideally, this is where we have to update the state of our likes. So we want to change the state of likes. Now, how do we do it? We do likes. We want to increment it by 1. We'll just do +1. Right? So it means that set likes copies the value of likes, the previous value, increases it to 1, and then displays it for us once that action is performed. So let's see now, when we click on the button, what happens? Do we get a likes 1, likes 2, likes 3? Let's see. Click. Can you see like 1? Click, likes 2. Click, 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 click to infinity. So that's the basic. This is like a basic example of state. In this case, we're using numbers. You might want to use something. Let's say, let's copy this and duplicate. Let's say, students. Set students, right? Somebody's saying, so not only does it record the likes, it also displays them. Yeah, we are displaying it here. Take note, this is where we are displaying it. So if you don't display it, you will not see it, right? So it's just logical. If you are not displaying it here, right, you will not see anything here. If you like click this from now till infinity, it's not going to display. So you must display it yourself. So what am I doing? Excuse me. Yep. So anywhere the event takes place, so at this point the state has been updated. So anywhere it is used, it is going to be displayed there for you. So that's that. Now, another key property of states in React is that when your state changes, the component is re-rendered. Take note, the component is re-rendered. So there's re-rendering taking place. That means the user interface is rebuilt. And then displays the state or the current state of that particular object. Take note. So you can see, if I click on this, you can see. So this particular state or component is being re-rendered and then giving us access to the current value of of that state So we see different approaches being used. For example, another way you could what this line, let me comment out this line. Let me do copy this. Let me comment out this. So what that line is actually doing is that it's saying that there's a previous value. Let's call it previous value, previous likes, arrow function, previous likes plus 1. Let's say prev likes plus 1. So you can as well pass. You can see the way I'm passing a function. So if the state depends on a previous value, you pass a function to set likes. So if I click on this, see, it's still going to work. So if you are developing an application such that your current state depends on a previous state, this is how you handle it. So you pass a function to your set likes, passing that particular previous state, and then inside the function, the previous state plus the current state you want to assign to it is going to give you the same thing. Can you see? So line 42 and 43 are the same, but this is a different use case when you need, or when the current state depends on the previous state. Take note of that. So and that's why states should be immutable. So because of that, React keeps track of all the previous states of that particular component. It doesn't destroy. You don't destroy. Let's demonstrate that. Let's come back to line 42. Let's undo activate line 42. Let's do plus plus here. Let's do plus plus here. And let's click this. Ooh, can you notice something? Remember in JavaScript, right? This is a valid increment operator. Remember in JavaScript, likes plus plus simply means likes equals likes plus 1. That is the meaning of likes plus plus. So, but now, who can tell me what's happening here? Likes equals likes plus 1. We are increasing the value of likes and reassigning it to likes. We are changing the value of likes. This is what React doesn't support. React is saying, do not mutate. Don't change the value of your state. Copy it, duplicate it, or replace it, but do not change it. So if we are doing, assuming this is just, if we are not using React hooks, just normal plain JavaScript, this is a perfect JavaScript for you. Perfect. But React says that state value that you've gotten at this point, that is originally 0, do not recreate. Here we are reassigning something to the same thing. So that means we've destroyed the previous value of likes. So if there's a way to keep track of previous values of likes, then it is gone. We don't have it again after line 41. But React tries to keep the state of previous value, so you don't destroy or reassign or mutate your state variables. You copy them, you replace them, so as it affects performance. It helps React to keep track of states and and what have you. So you don't do this in React. Instead, you just do plus 1 here at this point. So take note of that. So let me remove this. So if I click my button, so we're still good, right? So that's how React states work. You don't destroy your state, you don't mutate your state. Take note, you can duplicate, you can copy. So you do that so that React can keep track of all the previous states. So that's that. So that's how React basic. This is just basic introduction to state. Of course, state management is a big thing in React. State management. You must have heard of Redux. You must have heard of Redux Toolkit. Heard of so many state management extensions that you can use in React. So, but this is just the basic way to manage states in React. Oh, I was going to explain what is student. Okay, let me go back to that, please. So I was trying to tell you that you are not limited to just using numbers, right? So whatever state you want to mutate. So I was trying to demo here to show us that I can say what I'm trying to do here is that I want to use a Boolean flag to check whether this person is a student or not, right? Or I can say is student, then set student here. So in that case, I can use a true, or let's say if the default value is false, I can use a false expression here. So by default, this is student becomes a Boolean expression, right? So and you can set the state by changing, by calling set student and then setting the value to either true or false. Let's say something happens to let's say we have person, let's create another for person equals name is James Bond, occupation, let's say occupation is student, string student, let's say location is London. Now, so line 40 to 44, what we have done here is to create a basic, this is just JavaScript object. Look at, you use curly braces to create a JavaScript object. So for those who are new to programming, by now you are beginning to see that we use curly braces for so many things, so don't be confused. For a function, you use curly brace. You can see curly brace to close the function, curly braces. When you are calling a variable within your JSX, you use curly braces. If a block of statements, which is still a function, or any block of statements, you use curly braces. When you are creating an object, you use curly braces and all that. For arrays, you use normal square brackets and all that, which is what we did here. Here we destructure this into an object. This is called object destructuring because we're using curly braces. This is called array destructuring. This array destructuring because we're using square brackets. Take note of that. So now we've just created an object for a person. There's a person called James who lives in London and occupation is student, right? So maybe in your program, the logic is you are checking if that person is a student or not, right? So remember the default value of is student is false. So the default value is that whoever is applying to this application should not be a student. So there could not be a condition somewhere and check if is student. Remember the truthy and the falsy properties of JavaScript variable. I don't need to start checking if student equals false or anything. Already I know that is student is a Boolean expression. It's a Boolean variable because the default value of this hook, of this use state hook, is a Boolean variable. So this variable is already Boolean. So I don't need to start checking it this way. So if it is true, if it is false, it's going to enter here, right? If it is true, then this block of code will be executed. So I can now say, okay, if is student, then maybe console log you are maybe qualified. Whatever the use case is qualified, right? You can see. So, but the default value is false. But else, then if it's not a student and I want a student to be qualified, then I can now update the state of that particular state variable. So how do I do that? You use the second variable from your use state to update the state, right? So I can say set, remember it's a function, right? So you now pass a student. You can return if a student is false. Let's see how we can convert this to a Next.js project, right? Very simple. We're going to start by installing Next.js. Let's do terminal. So I'm inside Bootcamp, cd into week 11, cd into starter. So I can install Next.js here. So the simplest way to install Next.js is to do automatic installation, right? Instead of having to install the individual dependencies separately. When we did React here, we imported React separately, we imported React DOM separately, we imported Babel. But in this case, installing Next.js as a framework, the recommended way to do it is to use your Node Package Manager. So Node Package Manager exposes or has a what is it? A utility called npx. Let's check. Node npx. Do you have to install for every file you make? Which file? Which file is that? We're in week 11, right? This is week 11. So I want to install a Node.js project inside this starter folder. So each time you want to create a Node.js application. Yes. Oh, okay, that's what you meant. Okay. So each time you want to create a Node.js application. Yes. So each time you want to create a Node.js application, it's just a simple npx command, right? That's how to do it. Before npx, it used to be npm. You need to install npm, download all those things locally to your machine, or in fact, you could even need to install globally. But npx, I wanted to show you what npx is. So npx, so run a command from a local or remote npm package. So npx actually runs a command on your machine without installing those things globally in your machine. Let's say it's actually useful for testing or running packages directly from the npm registry. This is npm. This is the docs, but npm home, npm js. So all node packages are registered here. So you can also develop your own node package and put it here for people to use, right? If you say React or anything, you're going to see everything here. You can see React. It tells you the number of the version, the number of dependents, tells you the number of this. Look at weekly downloads. Can you imagine 27 million weekly downloads? Like, look at the version, the license, and all that. So npm is a registry for hosting node extensions or node packages, right? So from I believe it's from version 5.2, it also has a utility called npx node.js. So npx. So npx is let's do this one. So npx, I'm trying to see. Basically, npx executes. That's just the meaning. So npx stands for node package execute and is a command line utility that allows you to run any JavaScript package available on the npm registry without needing to install it globally on your machine. So before the release of npx, people used to do npm install whatever you want to install and all that, and the name of the package, right? But this downloads or installs the package. It could be global, it could be local to a folder on your machine, but they can actually download or execute that particular package without installing it globally on your machine using npx. So that's just the recommended way for doing it now. So we're going to use npx. Let's just go to Next.js.org. Always good to go to documentations, installation, system requirements. Of course, you need Node.js version 18 and above. Mac, Windows, Linux, just your laptop. So once you have this version of Node installed, you can install the latest version of Node. So this is Next.js 15, I believe. This is Next.js 15. So they introduced App Router in version 13. So before version 13, Next.js was using the pages directory, but now they are using a special App Router directory to take care of or to introduce newer features of React, like server components, client components, and all that. So it says the recommended way to do this is to run npx create next app at latest. So let's copy this. So this is a utility we are using to create or run, to create the Next.js project on our machine. So I'm going to paste this here. Remember, anywhere, look at the folder structure I'm using. I'm inside the week 11/starter. So it will be installed inside that particular folder. So anywhere you want it to install, make sure you are in that directory before running this command. So it's going to install it here at this point. So let's run this. This shouldn't take too long. So it's going to ask you, what is your project name? So let's just say Next.js demo. Next.js demo. Would you like to use TypeScript? So of course we've talked about TypeScript, but we didn't really train ourselves on TypeScript. So in this case, you can either select yes or no, but we've been dealing with JavaScript in this course, so let's just do no. We don't want to use TypeScript. Would you like to use ESLint? Yes is good. This helps us to have better type checks for JavaScript. And then would you like to use Tailwind CSS? So Tailwind CSS is another CSS utility package, or utility package for CSS that takes away the burdens of writing CSS in a separate sheet. That's just how I see it. But all the utilities have been built for you. You don't have to do, set background color, change this, change that. It's a very quick way to write CSS, and it comes supported in Next.js as well. But we've not talked about Tailwind CSS, so I'm just going to say no. So no. Then would you like your code inside a source directory? Prior to Next.js 13 or so, I believe source directory was default, but now it's now optional. So you can decide to use a source directory or not. So I can say no. Would you like to use app router? Yes, this is recommend. You can see they said recommended. Look at it says recommended. So app router helps you to make use of the latest features of Next.js from version 13 and upwards. So it's very, very important, or it is recommended for you to use app router. What it does is that it creates a folder with the name app inside the project, so, which we are going to see very soon. And it helps you to take advantage of server-side rendering, server components, class components, things that have been introduced in the latest versions of React. I believe starting from React 18. Then, yes, for that one, would you like to use Turbo Pack for next dev? And we do no for this. Would you like to customize the import alias? Default is no. So once that is done, you can see it's trying to install those packages in that folder. So it's going to bring everything into this folder without installing anything on your machine, not at all. So it's going to bring everything here into this folder. It's telling us giving us some deprecation errors, which are just warnings. You can ignore that. Telling us that npm this particular package has been deprecated. This one also is now deprecated, and all that. The meaning of deprecated is that it's no more being supported. So the developers are not upgrading that particular package. So if there are bugs in it, you are on your own. So you have to figure out how to how to resolve those bugs. But any package that is currently being supported, being developed, shouldn't appear as deprecated here. So it says can see success here, created Next.js demo at, telling us directory where it was created, and I can see it here already inside my starter folder, Next.js demo. That is done. So then I can close this and I can open that folder. It says, can npx install without install npm first? No. You need npm, you need node. In fact, without node, you cannot install npx. So npx comes with npm, right? And I believe from version 5 or so, you can start using npx with npm. So you need npm, which comes with node already. Take note of that. npm already comes with node, and again npx already comes with npm, so you don't need to install npx separately. Take note of that. So our Next.js project is now ready. So let's open this folder. Let's look at the folder structure. So we can see the app folder I talked about. This is the new app directory or app router that Next.js recommends, right? So all your routing should take place here. And Next.js uses file-based routing. Very simple. You don't have to rack your head over how to in React there's a separate package called React Router for routing your pages. But in Next.js, it's a full framework. All these things have been built in. You just use the folder structure. If you have a folder inside this app, another subfolder, just follow that folder structure. That gives you your routes to that particular component or user interface. So it uses file-based routing, which makes Next.js very simple. So we've installed our Next.js. You can see the app folder. These are the node modules. So everything you need, all the packages, all node packages that is required, that node provides or node exposes, are here inside these node modules, node_modules. You can see we didn't install it directly, but because we installed a framework, is going to come with it. So node modules, there is a public folder given to us, and then there are now other files. There is a JS config file, which we'll still talk about. There is next config mj module. There is package log.json. There is package.json. This package.json contains the scripts you need to run your project. For example, this tells us the name of the project, the name we give to it, the version, whether it's private or not. Then this contains the script to run your project. So if I want to run this project, I'm going to do npm run dev. So it's going to run this Next.js script. npm run build is going to run this next build. npm run start. This is the production version. So when you are ready to ship your code, at the end of the day, you do, first of all, you build the project so that the production version is available. And then when you now want your users to have access to it, you do npm run start. So this gives the users the production version already built by this. So building takes away all the dev features. For example, error reporting, bugs here and there. It recompiles the code, it compresses the code, it generates all the server-side HTML for you, so that's why Next.js is very, very fast. Most of the components are rendered on the server. So at build time, all those components have been rendered, and at runtime, using the start script, it fetches all that for you already, especially when those components or those components are not dynamically generated. If they are just static pages, for example, it's advisable to build them, render them on the back end, and then have them available in the front end. So it makes your application very, very fast. Then LinkedIn is just a tool that helps to check bugs or check errors in JavaScript. So all these have been built with, or all these are part of the Next.js installation for you. These are the dependencies that came with it: React version 19, React DOM 19, Next.js 15. Dev dependencies, development dependencies. So like I said, when you build and ready for production, all these will not be part of the production because they are only used during development. All right, so take note of that. So that's that. Package lock only helps you to keep track of the versions of packages. So if you have if you have a team working together and you are sharing, and you want to make sure that everybody has the same version of packages installed, so this is what this package lock does. So it keeps track of all the versions of the installed packages here, both here and here, right? So that's what it does, and all the other packages inside the node modules, it keeps track of the versions. So now what we're trying to do is to quickly demo. So let's run this code. How do we run? So we'll go to our command line. Let's clear command line, making sure you are inside the folder. Somebody's asking, are we going to be using npm run? Yes, npm run build inside the terminal whenever we want to run it. No, whenever you want to run during development, you use npm run dev. Look at this one. During development, you use this. When you want to build for production, you use this. After building and your app is now available to end users, of course, locally on our machine, you use this. But you deploy. There is Next.js. The makers of Next.js are actually called Vercel Next.js. So Vercel provides managed hosting of Next.js. So you can quickly host your Next.js application. So what you do is that after building, right? So it provides a production version of your project available for you. It is that you now deploy to Vercel or maybe AWS, for example. because it's now static files, right? You can even host them on Amazon S3, right? Because they are just static files at that point. So all the HTML have been rendered for you and they've been generated. So you just deploy. So Vercel, these people are the developers of Next.js. So they help you. They can also help you host your Next.js application. Um, you know, um, Either free of charge or you pay to have a domain name. If you have a domain name, you can pay for hosting and all that. But you can host it free of charge. They will generate random domain names for you just to test what you are doing. So, of course, they know that you can't use random domain names as a production application. So, you want your customers to identify you by your own domain. So, at that point, they will not ask you to pay, pay for this, pay for that, and all that. So, that's that. So to answer your question, when we are working locally or developing locally here, you run by using the dev npm run dev. That's that. Then npm run build is to build the production version. But if you now want to view the production version locally, you now do npm run start. So you are viewing the production version locally on your machine. It is not picking this one, it's picking the production version, which we'll have time to demo. I hope we'll have time to demo that as well. Can we use live server to run React, or can we use browser? So you don't need live server for this, right? Next.js has something called fast refresh. Let me see. Next.js, is it fast refresh? Fast refresh. Yes, so architecture. So fast refresh. So fast refresh is a React feature integrated into Next.js that allows live reloading, which is what live server already does. So when you are building Next.js or React application, you don't need live server anymore. Live server is only needed for running, static applications, your normal HTML, CSS applications like we've been doing before. But in this case, you don't need to use live server. Next.js already has fast refresh built into the framework. So take note. So that's why. So let's run this now. Let's just run this. Let's see what we're gonna get. So I'm inside the folder. No, not yet inside the folder. So let me go into the folder, cd. Because if you don't do that, so why you need to go into the folder is that you run your project from the folder that contains your package.json. Remember, the scripts are here. So if I'm inside, let me show you something. Let me do pwd. So I'm currently inside this starter folder, but the starter folder does not have package.json. So let's do npm run dev. npm run dev. So let's see what we're going to get. So you can see it says npm error code noent blah blah blah. It says this is related npm but being able to find a file. Say this is related to npm but is being able to find a file. A complete log of this can be run another. So the summary of this is that npm cannot find your package of JSON. So it cannot find the script that you are trying to execute. The npm run dev you want to execute is not available. So we need to go into the project, cd Next.js project, Next.js demo. That's the name of the project, right? Let me clear my command in my console. If I do ls -la or ls, I can list all the directory, all the content of my folder. So inside this folder, I have package.json. My node modules are here. So then I can run npm run dev. See, if I do this, it's trying to run. Yes. So starting. So I can click on, ready. Say it is ready. Now it generates a URL for us to view our application. It says I should go to localhost 3000. So let me just control click on it. It's opened here. Let me bring it, maximize the window. Yes, congratulations. You see, this is our first Next.js application. It says, welcome to Next.js. You can get started at this URL. You can deploy now. You can see they're asking to, yeah, they are marketing their product. So if you want to deploy, you can see it takes us to Vercel. You can see vercel.com. You log in, making sure that your code is already pushed to GitHub or GitLab or any of those platforms, and then you create an account. You pull your source code from any of those platforms to deploy. But that's that. So this is like the dummy page of this Next.js application. But let's quickly talk about some errors or bugs you could run into, because when I was creating this afresh, I ran into some errors or bugs. One of them is here, which is, you may see this, you may not see this, depending on the type of browser you're using. If you see this error here, don't be alarmed, don't be confused, don't say, oh no, why am I having this error? Most likely, it is due to extensions on your browser. So to check, you can run your browser in incognito mode. That means in private mode. So every browser has private mode. So let's say I want to open this file, this browser in private mode. For Firefox, it is called private window. I believe for Chrome, it is called incognito. So if I do that, if I open this browser in private window, so what it just does is that a private session on this browser doesn't load all extensions you've installed. You can see the title on this tab here. It says new private tab. So you are browsing the internet privately. You are not tracked. Cookies are not working. All the sessions are not working. All the extensions installed are not working, and things like that. So let's test this same code, this same output in private mode. Right? Let's run. Now let's see. Let's refresh. Can you see that error is not popping up here, but meanwhile it is popping up here. If I refresh, see, it's popping up in the non-private or the public browser, right? The one that is not in incognito mode is popping up here. So if you click on it, it says that it is called hydration. There's something called hydration in React. It says hydration failed because the server rendered HTML didn't match the client. As a result, this tree will be regenerated on the client. So React 18, like I said, introduces server-side components and client-side components. What is happening here is that it's like the so let's continue. It tells us the likely problems or things that could have caused this error. Number one, it could be due to a server client branch using something like this. It could be a variable such as date.now, math.random. It could be something like date formatting. It could be external changing data or whatever. It could be invalid HTML tag. In fact, after googling this, I discovered that people have or they complain about how you nest your HTML within React 18 and above. So if you don't nest your applications well, your tags well, it could lead to this particular error. But the one I'm having currently is this one. It says browser extension, which we just demoed. So in this private mode, all browser extensions are turned off. So this is working fine. So in case this error bothers you, if it bothers you, you can do it in private mode, but you can just ignore it. And this only happens in development. Take note. So that's why I said when your app is ready for production, users should never see errors like this, right? So if you deploy this or you build this and you deploy to production, you will not see anything like this. So it only happens during development, so which you can just ignore at this point or use this private mode. So our app is up. So let's examine where all this coming from. Let's look at Next.js folder structure and how pages have been created. So let's come back again. I can close this. I don't need you anymore. I can close this. So let's open this. Let's close this. So this is the folder structure. So Next.js, let me bring up a link here. Project structure. So folder and file conventions in Next.js. So the top level folders, like I said, we have the app pages. Of course, you will not see pages here because we're using Next.js version 15. So it's only the app you will see. Prior to the app router, you will see pages. Then there is the public folder. There is source, which was optional for us during installation. You see next config. This helps us to configure Next.js. Here, next config. This one here, you can configure your Next.js. There is middleware. There is env.env, so your environment variables. So this helps you to store sensitive environment variables within your script, and they are not exposed to users. Think of API passwords. Think of what else again? API passwords. Anything that users or end users should not see, right? Anything sensitive, you put them as environment variables here using .env file. You have the local one, the production, the development one. There's eslint.json. This helps you to configure eslint, and I believe we're gonna configure that. Let's open. Before then, let's just continue. Let's come back to this page. Where is it? No. Routing files. So you can see there's a layout.js or .gsx or .tsx that is given to you by default. Look at it again. There's layout.js. So this is the layout of your application, of your project. So it lays it out. Look, let's open this here. So it says the layout file is used to define layout in your Next.js application. So a root layout is the topmost layout in the root app directory. It is used to define the HTML and the body tags and other globally shared UI components. So let's look at that now. If you look at layout.js, scroll down here, you can see HTML, body. Remember, if it's just a normal HTML, you do, you have your doc type, HTML, body, you start declaring all your HTML tags. So Next.js uses this layout.js object or component as the root layout that can be used to display all other children. So which means every page you create, as we will see demo, there will be children of this root layout. You can see children here. There will be children of this root layout. Now, how does Next.js render a page? It renders a page with the page, look at page.js file or .gsx or if you are using TypeScript, it will be .ts or tsx. So in our case, we can see inside the app directory, we are having page.js because we opted for JavaScript. So here they named it home, meaning this is the home page. If we view our home page again, if we refresh this again, you can see get started by editing this page. You can see telling us what to edit. So this page we are looking at is from this page.js. It's from this page.js. So I can change whatever is here. I can say welcome. Welcome. If we check our script, automatically you can see without using live server. Remember we talked about, somebody asked the question about live server. We don't need it anymore. Next.js or React has fast refresh. Automatically it has refreshed this for us. So this page that we're looking at now is this home page. Remember the function, the React function we talked about in our last just a while ago. The same thing is being repeated here. function home, right? Remember, you must start the function, a React component with capital letter home. Now, this export default, this talks about JavaScript modules, which we've not really touched on. So it uses JavaScript modules to import that particular function. So anywhere home is being used, using the JavaScript module functionality, because you can have other functions here. I can also declare a function. I can say export function. If I can type function another component and return. Remember, it's a function, so put this and then return whatever I want to return another function, right? So for your framework to have access to this another component, so JavaScript modules helps us to export it out, and that is why we can import. If you see somewhere at this top, you can see import something. It is because these are like modules that have been that is ready for you to use inside this particular function. So you import them. So JavaScript modules helps you to use these features to export. But the default here shows that this particular home function is the default component of function that should be rendered on the page. So meaning that as this page is still being shown here, something is broken somewhere. It's still being shown here. Only render this one called home, not this one called another function, right? So that's why I'm not using default here. You only export one default out of all the functions you have in a particular page. So, and that one is the default page that will be rendered in the UI. So take note of that. Let me undo this. Let me undo that. Hopefully my code is still running. I think my CSS. Okay, so it messed my CSS up. So now that's that. Then there's another process. I notice. Let me see. Let me put my cursor here. You can see this import is underlined. Yeah, it says parsing error. Cannot find module next/babel. So what is Next.js is saying is that we need to reconfigure. Sometimes you need to really Google and understand all these things. So we need to reconfigure your Babel. Is it ESLint now? Let's go to ESLint. ESLint RC. So here we need to now extend Babel. But let me display a link that talks about that. Parsing error, Stack Overflow. Now look at this. So cannot find module next/babel. If you scroll down, it says in your Next.js project you have a file named .eslintrc.js. In this file you have the following code, this which is what we just saw now, but replace with this. So now create an array, because you have more than one. Let's come back. You have more than one configuration. We need to now put all of them in an array, right? So an array, comma. So bring in the other one. Ideally, as a programmer, you want to try as much as possible to disable all errors, right? So it's not going to affect production. It's just ESLint telling you something is going on. But yeah, let's just resolve all those. So now copy next/babel, paste here. You can make it the first one or the second one, whichever one. So yeah, so that resolves that parsing error. It's trying to parse this script and it's not finding Babel. So it's just in an ESLint error. It doesn't affect your code, but As a programmer, I always like to resolve any warning. So that's that. So this is the basic structure of your Next.js folder structure. The layout is here. The page is here. In fact, if you delete this layout.js, automatically Next.js will create it. It so much depends on this layout, on this object. Let's try it. Let's delete this layout.js. Delete. Move to trash. Watch here. It's back immediately. Look at it, came back again. So this is you can see, although this is now different from what was originally generated, this is like the basic, the minimum layout.js file that you need. But let me undo and bring back what was there before. I can undo, although it is going to complain because this one is already there. Anyways, that shows the usefulness of this layout.js. That's that. Then also, every page you want to route to. So in routing, in Next.js routing, I said it is based on file structure, or it is a file-based routing. Let me show you something. File-based routing. Let me open this. Routing fundamentals in Next.js. So you can see at the top level is the app folder, this app folder that is already here. Then inside the app folder, you can have different sections of your application. You could have a blog route. You can have a dashboard route. Inside the dashboard, you have settings. Under settings, you have a page for creating password or a profile page. On that dashboard, you have an analytics page. Under blog, you have a slug. We'll talk about how dynamic routes are named. This is anytime you see a square brackets on a folder name, that's a dynamic route. So that's how Next.js builds or works with routes. So you don't need to trouble yourself. You just next folders together. Automatically that becomes a route for you. For example, if I do this, let's say I have I want to create a settings or a dashboard. I need a dashboard for my website. A dashboard. Just create a folder called a dashboard. Dashboard inside your app, right? Automatically it becomes a route. So if I go to my front end slash, remember the app folder is the root. Where is that place again? So this is the top level app. So everything from here is already the app. So anything slash, then you will now want to go into the subfolders inside the app directory. So I can do app dashboard. So without doing any work in React, you need a separate extension to be able to do this called React Router. But in Next.js, it is built in by default. You just next folders inside the app directory. Automatically, they become routes for you. So if I do dashboard, you can see it says this page could not be found. Yes, the reason is even though dashboard is now a route, every page that is exposed, that is visible on the front end, must be named page.js. So now look at this. Because this page.js is directly under the app folder, logically we can say this like our landing page, our home page, our index page, the way we are used to, our index page. But in Next.js, you don't call this index page or index.js. You must name it page.js. That's the convention. You must follow that pattern, which is what we saw here. Let's go back to folder structure. See, page. Let's click on it. It says the page file is used to define a page in your Next.js application. You cannot do index.js. You can't do whatever name.js. Any page you want your users to see must be defined as page.js or .ts for TypeScript or .jsx or whatever, but it must be a page directory, a page file. Take note of that. So let's come back here again. So I was trying to demo. So now, how do we now see a dashboard? So what I just explained, now for me to see a dashboard, what do? I must come to dashboard, create a file named page.js. See, I can now say React functional component. I can now say dashboard. Automatically, it will expose this as a route, dashboard. So I can say dashboard page here. So I'm returning this text. So let's see, what are we going to get? Let's go back to our home page. Can you see? This is a valid Next.js page for us. Can you see? Dashboard page. Remember, it was telling us node something error 404 the other time, but now because we have a file named page.js inside this dashboard, it exposes that, or it gives us that particular page in the front end. Assuming I need another route again. I want to say inside this dashboard there should be a let's say settings. See, it's a folder. Again, if I go to dashboard, so now how do I access setting? You now do, because settings is under dashboard, is a child of dashboard, you just do slash what? Slash settings. Now this is going to complain again. No, now what do we do? Settings needs its own page as well. See? Page.js. Then I can do RFs. So what I'm typing here, there is an extension, there's a React extension I installed, so it helps you to generate boilerplate code. So you can see this is React functional component. This RFCE, React functional export component, you can be seeing, at the bottom how it is displayed here. But yeah, just a quick way to help you to type faster. So I can say settings, welcome to settings page. So if we go back to our user interface, automatically it's been loaded for us. So this is how routes work in Next.js. So take note of that. So let's quickly demo. Now let's bring in our React app. Remember the likes button that we worked on. We want to bring that in into this Next.js app as a framework. So how do we do this? Very simple. So we're now going to build. So there are things I really do not need here. I'm going to remove a lot of things. For example, I don't want. Let me just remove. Let me delete my dashboard. Okay, let me just leave them there. I don't need this for now, so I can delete this. It's going to flag some errors. We can correct all that. Delete. I'm also mindful of the time, but let's quickly see if we can demo. So I'm going to, is it giving us any error? But let's go to dashboard. Let's go to the home page. Yeah, so you can see CSS is broken somehow. If we check inspect console, yeah, so a lot of errors. Say a tree editor was some attributes are 700. So anyways, so let's continue. I'm removing all this. I want something clean and lean. So we've not even talked about CSS. So you remember when we're installing the Next.js, it gave us an option to use either Tailwind CSS or not, and we said no because right now we've not done Tailwind CSS. So Next.js also has a way to implement your own CSS within your project, even without using Next.js, without using Tailwind. So it has a concept of global CSS or module-based CSS. So you can see the way this is page.module.css. This CSS only should apply to this page.js, right? So If I need a separate CSS for my settings page, I must create another page.module.css inside this settings folder. That CSS applies only to this settings or page.js in this settings page. So these are called module-based CSS. But of course, I may decide to remove all this. I don't need any module. In fact, let me remove this. I don't need this. Global. I don't need this now. Now let's check the front page. See, all CSS have been removed. We're having, just unstyled output, right? Now let's remove, what else again can we remove? So because we removed a lot of things, let's go back to our home page. Okay, so this is done. Page.js. So this is, so Next.js. Let's remove all these. We don't need, in fact, I don't even need this. Let me call this again RFC, React Functional Component, export default function home. So home page, let's say home page, right? So let's check, see, this is our home page. So where is this coming from? A true hydrated, but some attributes of the server rendered HTML didn't match the client properties. Okay, yeah, this normal, this same one that we're ignoring, yeah, is from here. But of course, if you want to check your incognito mode, I believe we should not have any error here. Let's inspect console. Yep, it's clean, so we're good. So I'm cleaning up the project, so I don't need so many things here. Layout is important, is already here. Page, just for the home page. Module.js, let me delete you, I don't need you right now. So now let's bring in, so let's go back to, let's just quickly go back to our the HTML we worked on the other time and copy what we did and paste it here. HTML, this is it. Let's copy, is it the button? Let's return this. Let's return, okay, let's just demo something. So we're having a function called home. We have another function called header. So let's see how can we create sub-components. So yeah, Next.js is so interesting. So inside this same app directory, let me create a folder to group all my components there. Components, right? Now, even though this is a folder, it is not routable because I don't have a page.js. So I can create my header.js, right? So let's check, what is header returning? Header is returning this for me, right? Or let's just copy all this. So we're gradually converting or building, what is it, header. So it's function props return. So this is a valid React function, but let's do default because we need it. So let's do export default. So we need that. So what else do we need again from here? We need a button component, right? Well, let's see how to bring the header. Let's pass. Remember our header was used here. So we can now make use of header. So let's come back to our home. If this is confusing, just call me back and I'm going to home page. Let's do SOS. All right, yeah, this is just introduction, right? I'm sure by the time you start working on this, by the time you start going through documentation, all this will be very simple. I'm able to do this because I've been doing this over time. So now, so let's quickly discussed this before. The time is already 4:07, but let's quickly just do this. So it's telling us header cannot be found. Look at, I'm importing header. Remember, I've created, so what I've done here is that I created a subdirectory to hold several components. So in a real life project, you could have a header component, a footer component, maybe a button component, maybe another component. You group them together in the same place, right? So now, how do you make use of them? In the home page, this is our home page because this is the page file directly under the app directory. Remember what we talked about, the structure, how Next.js does routing. So the page, any folder that contains a page, page.js or page.ts is routable, becomes a route. So because this one is also page.js, in the top level app folder, it becomes our base or our home directory, our home or our index page, this particular page that we're looking at here, right? So now inside this page, we want to make use of a component called header. Where is this header coming from? It's coming from a subfolder called components and header.js. This is it. Header with props and all that, expecting some props. So, but in our home page, this page.js, we need to import, remember JavaScript modules? We must import it to this particular module because this is also a module on its own. Anytime you see export a function, this is already a JavaScript module on its own. So now we need, for us to use another module within this module, then we must import that particular module. So you can see VS Code is helping me to autocomplete. It's telling me there is a header component inside this components directory. So I can just click on it. It imports. So you can see import header from where? I'm importing it from this particular location. You can see .-component header. It goes into components and then imports this particular file, JavaScript module to us. So now with that imported, then this header is now available for us to use as a JSX component. So I can now use it here and then pass in all my props that I need. So let's see the front end. What is this saying? Ooh, can you see? Can you see the same demo we had the other time is coming up here? The same thing. So the same thing without even modifying the function. I just copied, where is it? I just copied that function from that other file here. All the props are still there. This is how we're displaying it. This is just a text here. Everything is being rendered here at this point. So we can now have our button. We can put our button somewhere here, our likes button, right? But again, let's demonstrate component. Our button can also be a component. So we'll put it here again. Let's create another file called, let's say, button likes.js. Again, every component must be a function, a real component. So real functional component, this, let's call it, again, must be uppercase, button, let's say button likes, right? Then I can now return a JSX of button here. So I can say this is a button, or let me just go and copy what is already here so that we know that this is coming from here, right? Where is button likes? So I can come here and paste. But of course, we're going to be having some bugs again inside this JavaScript component. JavaScript might be wondering, oh, where is this handle click coming from? You know, all that we're going to do very soon. But let's see, can we get our component here? So JavaScript is giving us some errors. Let's quickly check console. So it says, I can't even see all the other. Anyways, let's fix this. So handle click, remember handle click is a function. Let's just go and bring it here. handle click. Remember handle click? Handle click. Let's bring it here. Where is button likes? So inside the component, not outside. So make sure you're inside the component. So handle click. My button is still not showing up here. Oh, sorry, I've not called. So now we've created a button component. Remember, this is our home page where it's not appearing here. We are not using it here. So the same routine, we import that module because it has been exported out for us. Here, it's been exported out using the export. So it's now a JavaScript module. So once it is exported, we can use import to now bring it anywhere we need it. So let's go back to our home page. So import button likes. Look at import button likes from where? From here. Can you see? So I can now put my button component here. Button likes component at this point. So let's check our UI again. I think we should have likes is not defined. Oh, where? Oh, okay. Let's go back to our button likes. Oh, yeah. The series variable is not defined. So can somebody tell us why this is happening here? Remember in our previous demo, likes was what? Was a where is it? Likes is what? Is a state variable, right? So this now introduces us to client versus server-side rendering. So or server-side components. So by default, let me copy this first. Let's come back to ES. We're going to have a bug, but I'm going to explain the bug. This is how you learn. So button likes, come back at the top of the function again, like we said the last time, import. This is React. So you can see React is already imported, so we have access to it at this point. So React.useState. So let's check our JavaScript again. UseState only works in so this is the bug I want to explain. So there's a distinction between server components and what? And client components. So in Next.js, I believe from Next.js, is it 13 or so, or React 18 that just introduces the concept of server-side rendering, server components and client components. The default way to create all components you create in Next.js are by default server-side components. But now look at this bug. This bug is telling us, it says useState only works in client components. And so it says add use client directive at the top of the file to use it. So anytime you want to, there's something called collocation of components in Next.js. So within the same directory structure, I can have both server-side components and client-side components. So because I'm using Next.js inside this button, React is expecting because I'm using useState or hooks inside this button likes component, React expects this component to be a client-side component, or Next.js expects it to be a client-side component, because by default it is server-side as it is. It is being rendered on the server side, but we want to bring it forward to the front end, and we use what is called use client at the top of your file. Use client. Take note of that. So once you use this expression, Next.js sees this component as a client side or as a client component. So it will render this UI on the front end. The word rendering meaning that it will create the HTML on the browser, on the front end. It will not create it on the server side. So it will bring all the HTML that generates this button and do it on the client side not on the server side. So let's check so you can see the error is gone. So now we have our likes button. Ooh, it's even working for us without even touching that function because we just copied it. Look at so use state, everything is here for us, and the button likes is working. So that is how this is just basic introduction. There are still, well, this is basic. There are a lot of things we've not really touched on because of time and all that, but try as much as possible to go over the documentation. Go to come to this page. Let me open building your application. Come to building your application. You see routing. This talks about routing, rendering, data fetching, and styling. At least as a beginner, go through these pages. Talks about how routing works. We've talked about it. It uses file-based routing. Just be nesting your folders inside, that automatically there are routes for you. And there are also, each folder is a route segment. This is the domain, which is the app directory. This is a segment. This is a segment. This is a path and all that. This is app router. So it says in version 13, introduces the app router, like I said, to build React server-side components. So by default, all components you create on Next.js, they are rendered on the server. But if you need a component to be rendered on the front end, on the client side, then you must use the use client expression of JavaScript. So that's that. So next week, we'll try to work on a simple project, on a simple real life project, end to end. Possibly we can also talk about fetching data, inserting records into data and into database, and what have you. So yeah, so thank you very much. Any question? I know I breezed through this because of time. So a student is not defined, of course. That's what you get when you just copy source codes. So let's go to, let me remove all this because I don't need it here. Remember, here we defined it here as a React hook. So it's complaining. Or if I just copy this here and bring to this page, where is it? Buttons like, put it here. So that error should go away. So yeah, that's that. This is the hydration error that we don't care about. So any question? All right, no question. Thank you very much, guys. This has been awesome. This is the penultimate class of the Unlimited Code Bootcamp. Like I said, please make sure to, yes, you need more practice. So just, this video is going to be available maybe by tomorrow. Just go through it again, but go through the documentation. All these pages I opened, they are very important. If I just come to nextjs.org, go to docs. Inside docs, you can see the installation, project structure. This talks about project structure, all the folders and the files that Next.js generates for you. And even the ones that are not generated by default, they are here, which means I can create a file called error. I can create another one called route.js, global error.js, template.js, default.js, because here we don't have all those, right? Next.js allows you, by default, you don't have all those. So it shows that you can create all these. These are other files you can create as you need. So you can see error.js is for reporting errors. When you want to handle your errors effectively to your users, you can use this error.js file to do all that. If you need a default file to handle anything default, this is what you use for that. Or a parallel route fallback page. If something happens, you can't load a particular page, you want to fall back to this default page. So you just create this default.js and then implement the user interface. There's dynamic routes, there's parallel and intercepted routes. You can see how the folders are named. You must follow this pattern. I talked about this one, catch all routes, so dynamic routes. When you have square brackets, housing a folder name, that's a dynamic route segment. Think of a blog post. You are using the same UI to display different blog post content. So, have you ever thought of that? You have so many blog pages on a page. Do you have to recreate, each time for each each blog post? No, just one blog post page. You can reuse it to display you are just replacing the content of the blog post. So this is called dynamic route. So what is just changing dynamically is maybe the ID of the blog post. So making use of the same UI, just the ID alone changes, and then it displays another blog post to the user. So you use square brackets to do all that. There's metadata file conventions. You can have your icons and all that. Open graph. There's this concept of open graph. Have you ever wondered how when you send a link on WhatsApp or social media, how that link contains an icon or a picture, and then it's beautiful. You know that this is a link and click on it. This is the open graph specification. It's called open graph image. Open graph image. So you use open graph to handle things like that. So when you post a link, when you share a link on social media, you use this open graph specification to generate. There's another one called Twitter image. There's open graph and Twitter image to do all that. So that's that. There's SEO. You can create your sitemap, your robots.txt. If there are pages you don't want your search engine to crawl, you put them in a robots.txt file and all that. These are just basic web terminologies that are still being used here, because at the end of the day, everything becomes a web page. So all these concepts are from web development. So general web, not even Next.js framework, right? So all these concepts are from general web. SEO is not unique to Next.js. Open graph and Twitter images are not unique to Next.js. Your 5 icon, this icon you see on the on this tab. So these small icons you see on tabs, they are called your 5 icons. So these are just general web development concepts. Collocation, I mentioned collocation of directories. So both your routable and non-routable folders can be in the same place. For example, like this components folder is non-routable because we don't have a page.js. So it's ideally you can use this as a components folder to house all your components and all that. So yeah, so that's that. We're going to see next week. Hopefully we were able to work on a project, just a mini project to demo some other features of Next.js. Thank you very much, guys. We'll see you next week.